So one of the things that people often find confusing about Telecasters is what are the differences between some of the main production models, and I thought it'd be quite interesting to do today's video as a comparison between these two, which are ones that I've got in and I'm going to put through my complete strip down refurb and get them ready for sale process. So two very similar Telecasters. The one at the front is a 2010 Classic Series 50s Telecaster, which is slightly higher up the range and which was largely the same as you would now find as a Vintera series Telecaster. And then the one behind it with the tortoise shell pickguard is a 2022 Player Series. So these are two sort of very common types of Telecaster. Obviously they're pretty similar in colour scheme. They've got a lot of similarities, but there are some important differences. So as I work through them, then I'll take you through what those are. One of the first differences is that somebody, I believe, has put quite unattractive, in my view, tortoise shell pickguard on the Player Series. I do have a parchment one which I'll be putting back on this, at which point you can see that they're even more similar. So let's get into it. So obviously they're both the same size and shape, they're both Telecasters, but fundamentally the difference between the two is that the Classic Series, or the Vintera as it is now known, is essentially Fender's take on an original early Telecaster. So it comes with the more sort of classic appointments, whereas the Player Series is much more their kind of developed modern take on it. And in many ways it's an evolution of the original Mexican standards updated in 2016, 2017, something like that, with a different body shape, or slightly different body shape, and Alnico pickups. But it's got the more modern sort of style, such as it's got the 6-saddle bridge, it's got jumbo frets as opposed, or medium jumbo frets, as opposed to these ones are narrower. It's got a truss rod adjustment up at the neck, at the headstock, as opposed to on the Classic Series it's got a walnut plug, and then the truss rod is hidden just in there in the heel. And then obviously the bridge on the Classic Series is an original style ashtray bridge, which in this case has got no intonation done whatsoever. And then beyond that it's sort of details. So the big one for me, because I'm a huge fan of them, is that the Classic Series has got the split post tuners, which in my view all proper tellies should, but I know a lot of people don't like them, they're a bit Marmite. I think they're fantastic. Whereas it's got the modern sealed units on the Player Series. And then it's down to like very small details, like on the pickguard. On the Classic Series, it's got 5 screws instead of 7, so it doesn't have the additional ones, which would be here and here. And then the other point is that the pickup itself, the neck pickup, is mounted directly to the body, whereas on the Player Series it's more modern style and it's adjustable via the pickguard itself. And then just things like the Classic Series has got more domed knobs, whereas they're more squared off on the Player Series. So those are basically the differences, and then we'll get inside. The other thing I should say, full disclosure, on this one it's not standard, it does have a set of noiseless pickups installed, so these aren't the original pickups. Whereas I'm assuming on this Player Series, yes, they will be. These will be the Alnico 5 Player Series pickups, which actually are really good pickups. I like them a lot. So we'll start stripping them down and start seeing what the differences are under the bonnet. The first thing we're going to do is de-string them, and then we're going to get them stripped down and take a look inside. So let's take a quick look at the neck. So on the Classic series, we've got a maple board, obviously, and then it's got the truss rod adjustment in the heel, as we saw. The obvious differences, two obvious differences. One is that this is a 21 fret neck, whereas the Player Series is 22. And then secondly, these are much narrower frets. I think these are narrow and tall. So I think they'll be about 2mm-ish. Yeah. Yeah, so about 2mm. Whereas on the Player Series, it's medium jumbo, so they are 2.6mm. So you can see the difference between them. It's a much thicker and more rounded fret. Pow ferrule board on the Player Series. Obviously you can have the maple one, but on the maple on these, it's a more satin finish, whereas it's very much a gloss finish, traditional style on the Classic series. And then I guess the other obvious difference between these two guitars is nothing to do with the model range, but the fact that this the Player Series is a 2022 model, and although they need a polish, there's very little, if any, wear on the frets, so they'll just be getting polished and then the fingerboard conditioned. Whereas on the 14-year-old 2010 model Classic series, there is some definite fret wear on it. Yeah, you can see it there quite clearly. So that'll be getting a full level crown and polish, so there's a bit more work for me to do on that. So here's the necks off. A couple of other differences you can see. So on the Player Series, which is the one closest to us, it's a slightly lighter tint. It's not quite as amber, doesn't show up completely perhaps on the video, but it's definitely a couple of shades more orange, I suppose, on the Classic series. And you can see obviously that the 22 fret board overhangs a little bit over the end on the Player Series. Both got skunk stripes, both broadly the same, and then the difference is that the tuner holes, or the tuners, are smaller diameter holes for the Cluzon style vintage ones, whereas the standard 10mm with the two prongs locating pins on the Player Series. Just did a little bit of a sweep up there, as both these necks deposited quite a large amount of sawdust on my workbench, so I'm assuming that neither of them have been off in the past. So just take a look at the nut width. So we're on 42.5 roughly. Yeah, 42.5, and this one is 41.9. So it's slightly narrower neck, or narrower at the nut. They should both be 56.5 down at this end, 55.5. So they're probably, yeah, actually, interestingly, that one's 55.97 across there. Yeah, so the test will be, do the interchange. I'm sure they will do, Fenders almost always do. So let's just have a look at the depths of the neck. So at the first fret we are 21, yeah, basically 21.1 at the first fret on the player series. And then we are 22.6, so it's about a millimetre deeper on the classic series. And then up at, let's do it at the 12th, 15th, 17th. That's 25.4. 12, 15, 17. Also 25.4. So basically, so let's do the 12th then. 21.75 at the 12th. $23.75. So it's a narrower neck, slimmer neck on the player series, and a chunkier handful on the classic series. Having said that, it's a very comfortable handful. I think these necks are really lovely. Just a little bit more meat in them, and then the other thing is that there are different radiuses. So the player series, I believe, is 9.5. Yep. And then I think this one will be 7.5 in the traditional manner. 7.25, sorry. Which it is. Yeah, so it's slightly deeper, and part of that slightly deeper shape probably comes from the slightly more rounded fingerboard. So it might be that actually back from the line of the edge, they could actually be the same profile in terms of going over the back. But certainly the classic series feels slightly chunkier. And if I'm honest, it feels more comfortable. Let's see if we can. So it's possibly partly to do with the different radius of the fingerboard, but the neck edges feel a little bit more rolled on the classic series, and it feels just that little bit more comfortable to play as a result. And it's not because it's worn in, because there's no wear on the finish here. This is very intact, so it's not been sort of worn in from play wear. Whereas on the player series, it's it's by no means sharp edged, but it is a more pronounced breakover angle when you go from what is obviously a flatter fingerboard over the edge. And then the other thing I would say is that, I'll check this one, but generally players I've found tend to have quite decent ends in terms of how they've been dressed. It's a little bit rough up here, but I found also that most player series necks I've come across, I've bought a good few of them new as genuine parts. There's usually one or two high frets on them, so they generally benefit from a bit of fretwork. Whereas when I've had classic series in the past, a couple of them have been nigh on perfect, and I'm not sure that wasn't the way they came from the factory, because both those ones were, I think, slightly younger than this one. So I'll go over both of these with my fret rocker. The classic series, as you can see, there is wear, so this is going to get a full level crown and polish. I'll look at the player one. It doesn't need it from a wear point of view, but I'll check the fret levels. If it's only one or two that are out, then fine, I'll knock them down and just do them. But if not, I might end up just doing a full fret job on it anyway, just to make sure that it's of the standard that I like to put them out at. So let's get into having a look at these bodies, get them opened up and have a look inside. Obviously, same basic outline. The bodies themselves could well be identical. We shall see. And you can tell that this one's a bit older just from the amount of grime that's built up on the bridge, which is a dead giveaway of age really, because nobody ever really cleans their bridges that much. In the Player Series it's much cleaner. To be fair, these flat bridges are a bit easier to clean anyway, but we'll sort all that out as part of the work that I do. So here's what it looked like underneath. So obvious changes in the body. So the Classic Series is routed for a single pickup, and it's got a channel which is for feeding the wires through, which doesn't go all the way, and then it is got clearance at the end for adjusting the truss rod, whereas the Player Series is routing for a humbucker. It's got the same neck socket, but it doesn't have, because it doesn't need the truss rod clearance. Both of them have got the infamous CNC routing hole, which is all Mexicans have got, which is just the right size for Keith's stash, supposedly. I find that hard to believe. There's no way there's enough would go in there. And then on the wiring, so the cavities on the Classic Series are not shielded as far as I can see, whereas obviously on the Player Series they are, which is nice to see. Let's have a look at the wiring. So full-size pots on both. Standard kind of three-way switch on that one. 5-1, yes, it's the same. Standard switch, just mounted the other way around. Full size. Are they CTS? I'm sure they will be. Yep. CTS depressed in the middle. So no great surprises in the under the bridges. They've both got standard routing. Again, is it cleaner? I don't know. It looks a little bit cleaner just because of the paint, the conductive paint on the bottom on the Player Series, and standard fender. So what they tend to do with their earths these days is that there's a little wire which now just sits underneath the pickup mounting screw and attaches it to the plate so that you're earthed through the pickup plate or the bridge plate itself, and then that continues out, so you've only got the two wires coming out. And that's the same setup in both of them, standard fender these days. So not much to see there. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to give both of these a good clean with electrical contact cleaner. I'm going to strip the bridges down and give them a good clean, and then I will clean and wax both bodies, and then that's largely complete, and I'll zip them back up. So here are the two bodies, all prepped and ready to go. Welcome back. The next thing I'm going to do is check both necks for high frets and see what work is necessary on them. There you go. First one there. Oh, that's definitely high there. Yeah, so see, that's the thing about player series. They're decent. They are nice necks when they're set up, and you know, as they come out of the factory with the factory set up, the action is high enough that they're perfectly playable. But when you actually get into looking at the fretwork, it's pretty clear that I guess like most guitars in that kind of price range, they have the frets installed but they don't have any work done on them. And you know, anytime you do a refret, you always have to check for high frets and you always have to level it. It's just part of the process. So I guess they kind of price in that at some point it will get a setup which will make it absolutely perfect. But this has got, it's got more high frets on it than is worth trying to spot level. We'll just do a light level on it, it'll be fine. This one is going to get a level anyway just because of some of the fret wear, but it's not that bad. So, you know, it will be quite light. But interestingly, oh, there you go, there's one. So this is quite level. It's definitely better than the player series. I don't know whether, I mean, the classic series is a higher range model. I don't know whether that actually means it's got any more you know, post-production care and attention paid to it. But so far, this looks like basically one high fret so far. So I'll check those. That might be, well, it could be it needs seating better, but in reality, because it's a finished neck, you can't do anything about that. You've got to level it. If it was one of these that's high, the first thing you do is just check whether it's actually sitting fully seated or not. Sometimes you can just tap them in. A lot of times with player series, you can just tap them in and then it will be fine. So it sort of depends what kind of standards you're going for, is my point. This has got a little bit of wear, so I'm going to level it anyway just to take that out. It's not that bad. It'll just be a light, you know, a light kiss. This one's got pretty much no wear at all on it. So if it wasn't for the maybe a little bit there. Yeah, so both of them level crown polish. So the first thing I'm going to do is to adjust the truss rod to flatten the neck completely on both necks so that they can then get in and level the frets. It's really important that you do it at a point where the fretboard itself is as level as possible so that you're taking an equal amount off all the frets. If you level the frets but the neck's not level, then you end up with the ones in the middle or the ones at the end are higher, depending on whether it's got a bow or not. So it's worth taking a little bit of time, which I won't bore you with, just to go through the process and make sure they're absolutely spot on. So here's the end result, both guitars reassembled and all set up and ready to go. So the Classic series is I'm really pleased with. It's come up beautifully. It's 2010 guitar, so it had a fair amount of grime, but basically it's in really good condition underneath what there was. It's responded well to polish, and obviously with all the fretwork, there's no play wear in it. This is really lovely, and I suppose it is my preference. I do enjoy these earlier style ones. I like the neck on these. They've got a really nice feel to them, and this is a very classy guitar. This is the Player series. Pau Ferro is darkened up a little bit with the treatment that I gave the neck. It's a 2022, so obviously it's a lot younger. It's in really good condition overall. I think it does look better with the white guard on it. And again, these Player series are really nice guitars. Sounds great, nice neck, and both of these are now ready for sale, and they'll be listed on my Reverb shop very shortly. So that's it. Thanks for watching. I hope you found that useful to see the differences between the two models. Hope you enjoyed it. If you did, then as always, please like and subscribe, and I'll see you back in the shack soon.